Getting to med school with never having stepped to hospital and watching a doctor for 5 days of the week. Hey everyone, I'm Uwa. I'm a first year medical student at the University of Nottingham and welcome to my channel. So if you're new here, feel free to head over to my Instagram, it's at uwaisibor.com_ and also my website so you can check out a bit more about me and find out about what I do. So that's the usual intro out the way. Without further ado, let's get on with today's video where I'm going to be telling you how you can get into med school with no work experience. Yes, I said it. Get into med school with never having stepped to hospital and watching a doctor for 5 days of the week. So let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to say about this is that because of the current pandemic and the current coronavirus situation, you are not going to get penalised for having no work experience. Med schools have changed criteria to fit situations, fit the circumstance, because obviously it's not been safe for you guys to go into hospitals and to get the usual work experience that you would have done in previous years. But there are other things that you can be doing to make your application as amazing as it can possibly be. So surrounding work experience, doing it allows you to show you've got an invested interest in medicine, to show that you're willing to give your time to do some research into your future field of study and into your future career. It shows motivation, shows dedication, and it's also really fun. I had so many different work experiences and I enjoyed literally all of them. I was just lucky to get ones that were fun. One of them I arranged like a scheme. It was with the Women's Hospital, like their education team, and the other ones I arranged independently by actively contacting surgeons and consultants, secretaries, but it was all worth it in the end. And throughout all my work experiences, I also made loads of connections with surgeons, consultants, junior doctors and med students who helped me at various points of my application and who I talk to now and just keep in contact with. That's another good thing about work experience. You've got the opportunity to network and to branch out. It also helps you to decide if medicine really is for you to an extent. So I say to an extent because you only watch a doctor for like 5 days a week of about 6 to 8 hours a day, so you aren't actually getting a full picture of what it's like to be a doctor. You're just getting a snapshot, but it still is a really useful snapshot. However, it's not essential and there are absolutely other ways that you can show your interest in medicine and show that it's something that you really want to do. And with doing these other things, they can help you confirm your choice in medicine. So I've got a whole list of things I'm going to go through which you can be doing between now and submitting your application, which are amazing substitutes for your normal physical work experience. So the first thing that I've got on my list is reading like some health articles or some med related articles, journals, or med related books. And honestly, I am not the kind of person to read. Like, I've never enjoyed reading, even now in med school. Yes, I'm only my first year, but I've never ever read one of the recommended texts, and unless it's absolutely essential, I don't ever see myself reading it. But in terms of your med school application, reading can really help you. So I read the book Be Mortal by Atul Gawande, and I learned a lot from that book. And not only did that book give me a further insight into medicine, I was also able to talk about it and to link it with some other research projects that I did. So on my Instagram, I got a pretty old post about books you can read as an aspiring medic. I'm planning to update that. Hopefully I'll have it updated before this video is out. If not, once I've got the new post out, I will link it below in the description section. And if you are going to talk about it in your personal statement, don't talk about the contents of the book because that is not beneficial. Rather, you're going to talk about the skills that you've learned from that book. How has reading that book developed your insight into medicine? How has reading that book confirmed your choice in medicine? What did you learn about the roles and responsibilities of a doctor, or the things involved in patient care and healthcare that you didn't know before? It's that kind of stuff you want to talk about. Something else you can do, which I've mentioned in one of my TikToks, is doing some med related research. Usually, like I said in the TikTok, I'd say an EPQ is pointless medicine. It's quite stressful, I'm not gonna lie. It's very time consuming, and a lot of universities don't even look at it. but there are other universities which can offer you a reduced grade if you do an EPQ. But yeah, you can do an EPQ now, you can do any med related research, and again with this, you don't want to be talking about the findings of your research in your personal statement or when you're in interview. The university is really expecting you to make some groundbreaking research. Rather, one of the skills you learn, such as you were able to develop your time management better, you were able to engage more in these academically stimulating texts and articles that you read. You learn how to research. It's something that you'd want to take forward with you when you do an intercalated year, if that is still going to be offered by the time you start university. So for me, I was able to talk about my EPQ and tie that in with some other independent research that I did and some work experience that I went on. Something else is going to give you an insight into medicine and give you an insight into the UK healthcare. Is going to be looking at news, and again, I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit there and watch or read the news, but reading the news will really help you just to get an idea of what's currently going on. So something that's obviously really big right now is COVID, so you want to look into like the wider impact of that that's in the news, such as the economic impacts, for example, and focus like less on how the virus actually caused disease, because you won't get asked that at an interview. If you are like me and you really don't enjoy watching or reading the news, a little loophole around this is the Medic Portal. I know I spoke about this in another video, but they do like the top NHS topics in the news. You can look at this every so often just to know what's going on, and again to expand your insight into medicine. And it is really useful on your interview periods to look at this, because you never know, you might get asked to either interpret a news story or to talk about something you've read recently in the news, why it's interested you, why it's relevant to medicine, etc. So another thing which I'm always promoting, always encouraging, is to get involved with social media. There are loads of, I don't know the correct term for this, but there are loads of med tubers or med influencers, just med students and doctors who are willing to share their experience with you and willing to reach out and help out to you, so make the most of that. My go-to phrase is that my DMs are always open, but I mean it when I say that. Feel free to message me at any point, and yes, again, I'm only a first year med student, only been here for about a semester and a half now, but I'd be more than happy to always tell you about my experiences and give you help and support with your application. I've been through this cycle recently, I know it's tough, so I'm willing to help you. And there's loads of other people who are also willing to do that. Just follow up on them to give yourself an insight into medicine. So I've got a couple of vlogs on my channel, and I'm hoping to get some more out. And there's also Dr. Alex you can watch, who gives you realistic ideas of what it's like to be a doctor. Just watch these things, you get an idea of what to expect when you do start med school and when you do eventually become a doctor. You're going to go in with a realistic view, and again, it's going to give you a further insight into medicine and help you decide if this is really the career that you want to do and if this is really the subject that you want to study. For the next thing, I've recently done a post about this on my Instagram, and that's about virtual work experience. Well, the post is about virtual experience alternatives, but there is some virtual experience included in there, so have a look at that. And just get involved in what you can. Again, to give you an insight into medicine, there's loads and loads of opportunities about online right now. Just have a Google of some, but hopefully my post is able to help you and direct you towards some work experience you can take part in and you can get involved in. Another thing that's going to boost your application, you can substitute for work experience, is any past part-time jobs that you may have had. I understand that with the pandemic you might have been able to have the opportunity to do any work, get any retail experience, but if you have got any at all, use your advantage and talk about it. You can talk about your roles and responsibilities, but more than anything, as I've already said, it's what you learned from that. So how did you develop your team working skills? How did you develop your communication skills with people? What were some challenges you faced and how did you overcome them? And how will you take these skills and these traits forward with you in the future? And how would these make you a better med student and doctor? These are the kind of things you're going to be learning anyway on work experience. So if you were in a physical hospital and you were observing the multidisciplinary team, you'd be observing the teamwork, you'd be observing the leadership, the communication, stuff like that. Or you'd be observing how a doctor is able to interact with a non-English speaker, etc. So substitute the skills you learned in your past jobs, if you've had that experience, with what you would have learned on a physical work experience placement. I don't know if you can hear my belly rumbling, but I'm really hungry. Need to get this video filmed and 2 others, and then I can have my lunch. Something else, again, that you might unfortunately have limited experience in because of COVID is volunteering. So a lot of universities, a lot of med schools have actually always prioritised volunteering over your work experience, because they want to see that you are actually physically getting involved and you are getting that hands-on experience of working with and caring for the people. Because with work experience, yes, it's fun and yes, it's insightful, but you aren't actually doing anything, especially if you're applying straight after college, because you're going to go on your work experience when you're 16 or 17. It's very limited with what you can do. You're actually going to be observing doctors and observing other healthcare staff for the course of a week, and you aren't going to get involved. Whereas with volunteering, you have the opportunity to, as little as it might be, make brews for people, tidy up, have some sort of involvement in patient care, communicate with patients and their families, etc. You are getting involved with the health, and not only have you got the opportunity to observe patient interaction, but you have the opportunity to develop it. So volunteering is very valuable, and if you can get some volunteering experience, I really advise that you do. Something else you can talk about, which med schools absolutely love, are any hobbies that you've got. So being academically intelligent is very useful, but in today's society isn't the most important thing for being a doctor. They want to see that you're a person, and the best way to show that you're a person is to do something outside of medicine. So if you've got a hobby and if you've got things that you enjoy, talk about it in your personal statement and talk about it at your interviews. And doing hobbies gives you the opportunity to develop skills. Something that I talked about, which I really enjoyed doing, was like musical theatre and acting and drama. That was massively able to improve my confidence throughout the years that I did it for, and it improved my public speaking as well as improved my teamwork skills. And it also shows the med schools that you can do something other than work. You can step away from your working revision and you can avoid burnout, which is a really important trait to have in any aspect of life. It's good to be able to strike that work-life balance and do things and make time for things that you enjoy. And finally, something that I didn't think about until I came to write this list is watching role plays on YouTube. This might sound really silly, especially if you're not at the stage in interviews yet, but I think it's actually a really great and really valuable resource. So just type into YouTube stuff like MMI role plays and watch things about like Breaking Bad news or ethical dilemmas, because these are things that again you would observe during physical work experience. You would observe how a doctor would break bad news to a patient. You'd observe how they're empathetic, how they are compassionate, etc. And these are things that are going to be talked about and amplified in these roleplay scenarios on YouTube, because they're going to tell you the things that you should and shouldn't do. This might actually be better than observing it physically, because on these ones they're going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, and they're going to tell you why you should and shouldn't do those things. Get onto YouTube and watch some roleplay MMI practice and preparation scenarios. So some last little bits before I round this video up. With anything that you do, you're going to want to keep a reflective journal. This is what you keep on physical work experience. So keep this journal, and in that journal you want to talk about the skills that you've learned and you developed, and particularly those that are relevant to that of a doctor. So teamwork, empathy, diligence, resilience. There's a whole host that you can Google and find out more about. You can also make notes of why this particular experience has confirmed your choice in medicine. Why is this particular experience has contributed to you wanting to study medicine and wanting to be a doctor? Some key things that you do want to look out for, especially if you are observing any virtual work experience or you're observing these role-play interactions that I told you about, is stuff like the doctor-patient interaction. Consider the facial relationship between the doctor and patient. Are they at eye level? Are they stood up? Are they sat down? Why? The body language, the tone of voice, and the bad news was broken. The pace of their speech, how it's irrelevant, just stuff like that. And like, how would their communication be adapted when they're talking to a child, for example, compared to an adult? And why. You're also going to want to consider the roles of a doctor, which I've already mentioned, so like their key responsibilities, their day-to-day activities, their role of candor. My mind has gone a bit blank right now, but just stuff like that you want to be considering. And then teamwork, how others work with each other in the hospital. And then something else, patient care. How was this maintained and why is it important? And also look into patient-centered care. What is the relevance of this and how has this changed from what patient care used to be earlier on? One of the first things that I mentioned was about reading some med-related books. So I'm just going to talk about some points you can consider. These are things I've written down, so I'm just going to read it from my phone. But you want to think about what have you learned from the book and how has this book influenced your choice to study medicine. That's a point that I have reinforced continuously throughout this video. What was the most interesting point mentioned in this book? Again, more relevant to something that you can take away rather than to the content. So like, was there a specific message that the author was trying to get across? And also, after you've read the book, what can you do? Are you just gonna put it back on the bookshelf and move on with your life and just say in first statement that you've read it? Or are you gonna do some sort of research that's relevant to something that you learned about in the book? Just constantly think, how can I further develop my interest and my insight into medicine? What can I do that's going to make my application 10 out of 10 and that's going to maximise my chances of getting that all-important interview and that even more important place at med school. So that's the end of the video. One video down and 2 more videos left to film until I can have my lunch. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you found it useful. Something I forgot to say at the beginning of the video is to please like this video if you did enjoy it and if you did find it useful, and be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any of my uploads. The main focus of setting up uwaisibor.com and my social media platforms was to reach out to aspiring medics and to help people with application. So a lot more of my videos over the next coming week are going to be focusing on that. I'm still going to do my vlogs or the medicine related videos I've got planned, but I do want to help you guys as much as possible because I know applying for medicine is tricky. So if I can do something to make application a little more bearable, that's going to make me happy. Before you leave here, please hit subscribe and turn on post notifications, and then when you do leave here, head up to my Instagram and drop me a follow. Thank you guys for your support, and yeah, I'll see you in my next video.